Welcome to our candidate relationship masterclass. My name's Siegfried. I'm an account executive here at GoodTime, and I'm one of your hosts along with my colleague John here. We've got a really awesome presentation for you, a little bit of thought leadership about the really rapidly changing world of hiring that we're all in. And we're going to dive into some of the principles of candidate relationship intelligence and some of the tools and tricks that you can use to optimize that and face some of the modern challenges that we're all in. For a little bit about GoodTime and who we are, just dive right into the next slide here. I'm an account executive here, and what John and I work on is really helping organizations with the overall problem of meetings, especially post-pandemic. Meeting time has gone up drastically across the entire world of tech and all sorts of remote jobs. But specifically today, we're going to be focusing on the world of hiring, of candidate relationships, of interviewing, and time spent in interviews and how to make that time really productive. So that's the world that John and I are in all the time. I'll go ahead and jump to the next slide here. And in terms of candidate relationships and experience, what do we know about it? What brought us to this point? GoodTime at this point has scheduled millions of interviews across hundreds of top forward-thinking companies. So we'll see and hear from a couple of leaders over at Beamery today about their experience using GoodTime and how they think about candidate relationships in the modern world of hiring. But we've also been supporting some of the top companies over the past few years through some really wild times, right? So you can imagine what it was like to help Zoom out with their interviews and hiring during the peak of the pandemic. And we've gathered a lot of really interesting and compelling data about what affects hiring and interviews when it comes to candidate relationships and candidate experience. So out of those thousands and thousands of reviews, we've had 27,000 candidates review GoodTime and give us 4.94 out of 5 stars on average. So that's just a little bit about us, what brought us here, what sort of information is going to inform the webinar that we have for you today. And on the next slide here, I'm going to walk through what our agenda is. So you're going to hear from me, you're going to hear from John. I'm a software salesperson and I love to talk about our awesome technology and tell customer stories, but the bulk of who you're going to be hearing from today are Maria and Matthias, who are both leaders at Beamery, who have implemented GoodTime, who have seen a lot of success over the past couple of years in changing and focusing on candidate relationship and candidate experience throughout the hiring process in order to meet their goals. So we're going to spend a little bit of time focusing on the core concepts of candidate relationship, some of the core ideas there. We're going to speak about what we call the main pillars of CR. We're going to dive into some of these specific tools and techniques that you can use to take these concepts and apply them immediately. And then we're going to dive right into the lion's share of our time, which is going to be that panel interview. And as a little bit of housekeeping here, so this is really interactive. We encourage you to throw questions into the chat. There's going to be a poll. Feel free to sit back and relax. But if you would like to get engaged here, we are listening as well as presenting here. So we'd love for you to get engaged and present some really compelling questions to our panelists here. And if you stick with us until the end, we are super grateful for your time. And we have a great gift for you as a thank you for your time, as well as an opportunity, obviously, to connect with us if any of these concepts are particularly compelling to you and you'd like a little bit more data or information about how you can apply them in your organization. So stick with us to the end for that gift. And I'll go ahead and get right into the meat and potatoes of candidate relationship intelligence here on the next slide. Alrighty, so why candidate relationships? We could have taken a lot of different concepts and spent that time that we have today digging into them, but candidate relationships are one of the most important differentiators for facing the hiring goals that we're all challenged with now. So we're in a world in which there is a global talent shortage. I think I read that there was about 100,000 engineering positions alone left open in the United States in 2021. That's just engineering positions. And they're left open because there's simply not enough qualified candidates to meet those needs and to fill those seats. Just anecdotally, if you're on business TikTok at all, you will see this huge interest in people getting qualified for tech jobs. And there's this constant communication about the fact that the ball is really in candidates' courts. The ball is in employees' courts. There's been a huge shift, candidly, in power dynamics. We're all employees and employers, but there's been a massive shift in power dynamics to the point where we have to think really critically about the experience of people that we're trying to entice to work with us. And that hiring is occurring everywhere. We are an increasingly connected world. This has been true for a couple of decades, but over the past 2 years, that has dramatically increased. I think if you think about your own work, you'll probably notice that it's become more international, more remote, more spread out, and more connected in more different ways than it was just 2 years ago. And thirdly, there is a massive shift in terms of how people are thinking about employment in general. Folks more than ever are very compelled by companies that focus on issues like social justice, climate change, and people overall have spent the last couple of years really in their homes thinking about what's most important to them, how they want to spend their time, how they want to spend time with their families and what their values are. And people want to make sure that the time that they spend at work is aligned with that. So I'll dig into these with some great statistics and a little bit of crispy data for y'all, if I can get it to the next slide here. Alrighty, so again, just core concept, fewer candidates means more competition, right? So we're gonna get into that data, but fewer candidates means more competition. And secondly, working from home means that we're all, basically work is at home, right? So I was anecdotally never a ping pong table person. I was never the beanbag or cold brew on tap person. That really never did it for me. But the people that it did it for, that's really just gone. It's really just candidly quite gone. So how do we differentiate experiences if we can't differentiate our offices? And we've got to think about the digital experiences that people are having when they interact with our organizations. Next slide, please. All right, so there's 4 main pillars to candidate relationship as we've kind of pulled this data and broken it out into quantitative and qualitative values. Some of the main ways that we can think about this is that initially, what folks are looking for is some genuine connection. We live in a post-fact world in some ways, so there is a stronger sniff test for authenticity across the board for all kinds of relationships and digital communications, whether we're talking about marketing or whether we're talking about posting on LinkedIn for a job, or whether we're talking about that initial interaction with a sourcer or recruiter. We have to take a position of authenticity and genuineness, because otherwise it's just going right into the bin. And how do we do that? We do that with an increased amount of transparency. You're going to see in a moment that there's some very strong data about things like putting salaries in your job descriptions. People expect transparency about serious issues and what working for your company is going to be like from the beginning. Another way that we can improve our relationship with candidates is around adaptability. So we're talking about things like obviously remote work, but also asynchronous work, adapting to people's specific needs or specific family situations or living arrangements, and how we can move around those and optimize our working ability around candidates and how they like to work to get jobs done. And lastly, candidate well-being. We're all also employees, right? So I think we'll all be able to look back at the past couple of years and see that health has been top of mind, family and core values have been top of mind, and work now has to fit around that. We're no longer so willing as a global community to sacrifice our well-being for work. It just seems like a raw deal, and we have to transparently address that if we want to win and if we want to meet our goals. Next slide, please. And I'll dig right into it in the next slide. So for genuine connections, here's a little bit of good data. So 72% of candidates would reject a job offer if they didn't feel connected to the company during the hiring process. So these are candidates that you have almost over the line. They're typically at 4 or 5 different companies interviewing, getting to those later stages. And even if the salary is aligned, even if the benefits are aligned, even if the work and job description are aligned and all of that, if they don't feel that genuine connection and we have that human to human connection, people are rejecting offers and saying, no, thanks, I'm going to go somewhere else. Next slide, please. So when it comes to transparency, this number, I actually found this to be a little bit lower than I expected. I guess it varies a little bit by subculture to subculture, but 39% of respondents expected to be informed about compensation in the initial job posting. So this is a super hot topic. There's lots of different ways that people are trying to address this, but honestly, if you want to talk about transparency, we have to put our money where our mouth is, right? So having that initial posting have the salary in it is also going to be really impactful for some of our DE&I initiatives. And it's something that if you're not doing from the beginning, you're not meeting basic expectations for candidates anymore, right? It's just a way that people don't appreciate being treated anymore. They don't want to do the back and forth. They don't want to kick the tires with a recruiter just to find out, you say it first. No, I'll say it first. What's the number that we're looking at here? That level of transparency makes a huge difference in relationship with candidates off the bat. Next slide, please. So adaptability, candidates are interviewing at 4 times more employers than pre-pandemic. There's probably a lot of different interesting reasons for this. One of them is that the opportunity cost of interviewing has significantly lowered with remote work. So we no longer have to take a sick day or like hide a suit in our car for us to change into to go do an on-site. We can be interviewing all the time, unbeknownst to anyone. So it's significantly lowered the opportunity cost of interviews, and also due to the just extreme shortage of candidates, people are being actively reached out to and engaged all the time. So your best candidates are interviewing 4 times more places than they were just a couple of years ago, showing how important it is to maintain that genuine, transparent relationship with them from the beginning. Next slide, please. And lastly, again, candidate well-being. Again, this is going to be one of the main focuses for most of your candidates. It was for me before I started working at GoodTime, and it is a major reason that I'm here, is that we had transparent conversations about things like asynchronous work and jobs to be done versus just sitting in your seat pretending you're in an office all day. 59% of respondents cited employee well-being as the top enticement for attracting top talent. So again, the ball is in candidates' courts. People are making work fit around their life because they're able to. So we just have to be able to address that honestly, address that transparently, and show through our recruiting process that we're going to meet candidates where they are and have transparent, honest conversations with them about that. And creating a digital experience which enables that and helps us lead to that is going to be essential in creating that feeling from the beginning. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump to the next slide here. And I'll leave y'all with John for a bit here to jump into some specific tools and techniques before our panel, and come back at the end to reveal our thank you gift and some opportunities to connect with us further from there. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Siegfried. Really appreciate that, and great data. So I'm going to run you through just a couple slides here to really talk about the tools and the techniques and the early fundamental stages about making sure that we are in line with a lot of those key points that Siegfried just brought up. So Tyler, if we could go ahead and move to the next slide. So really 3 areas of focus here that I want to touch on: candidate feedback, building diversity from the studs up, and interview training. Candidate feedback really ties into what Siegfried was just kind of outlining there before. That power dynamic has shifted to some degree, right? Candidates expect more ownership and involvement in the process. And for this reason, their feedback becomes necessary and expected. This provides interviewers, by factoring in that candidate feedback really from the whole process, through the interview process, through each stage of it, getting that feedback, it gives the interviewers an ability to take action and ensure that they are operating on the same page as their candidates. And again, providing that transparent environment that candidates so eagerly want now. Building diversity from the studs up. DE&I, usually a top of mind for all hiring teams right now. You want to ensure that companies are presenting themselves, highlighting their efforts, and ultimately providing a thought out and personalized experience for their candidates. To do that, they need to ensure that they have the tools in place to provide that experience right from the very start. So making sure that you have, the people on your interview panel, representing your company in a way that is going to attract and be attractive to your candidates that are coming in, having the ability to provide that experience for them and show them the way that culture is going to be and that they are representative of what that company stands for. Lastly, interview training. This kind of ties into a little bit of that previous one there. You need to make sure that you have a broad and diverse pool of potential interviewers. This allows really for two things. It allows you to ensure that you have enough people available to really provide availability at almost any given time, really accelerate that process of bringing candidates through the funnel, through the process, and getting them ultimately hired and making an offer. But it also makes sure that you have a diverse group so that you can tailor those interviews in a way you can put people in those panels that are going to be representative of the company, but also representative to the candidates that you're trying to attract. Go ahead. I'm going to run you through a couple slides here with some data similar to what Siegfried just did, and then we will kick it off to the really fun part here. So the trend now, industry leaders are your leaders out there are closer to matching what that 50% standard of equality in their processes right now. What we're seeing across the entire spectrum, I think females are representing about 37% of the interviewing panel right now as a whole. Next slide. Companies that are, going back to what we talked about with the diverse pool of interviewers, companies that are enabling a diverse and inclusive interview panels experienced a 4x increase in their interviews in less than 1 year. So it really talks about the importance of training up your interviewers and having that broad, diverse pool to really portray yourself out to the candidates that you're trying to attract. And last slide here, Tyler. And again, this ties back into that interview training. Do you have enough trained interviewers? 5 alternate interviewers for each interview equals a 95% chance that one of them will be available for the time selected to the candidate. And as much as it is, that we want to provide that great candidate experience, being able to move through that process quickly and be the first one to put an offer in hand is an extremely powerful tool. If you've interviewed and you've gotten a job offer, being that first one it's tough to pass it up once it's in hand. So, being able to get yourself to that point quickly is a very, very powerful thing to do. And we need to be able to have the resources available to make that process go that fast. With that, I am going to take you out of slide world and we are going to bring in Maria and Matthias. Let me shift over here really quick. All right, Maria, Matthias, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome. Maria and Matthias, if you could you provide maybe a short intro of Beamery and then maybe your role at the company before we kind of kick into some Q&A here.
Sure. Matthias, do you want to explain to people what Beamery does? And then let's do introductions.
Oh, I can. Yeah, 100%. Oh, but okay. So what does Beamery do? Beamery is a talent lifecycle management tool. We literally came out of a CRM, literally like the Salesforce for recruitment kind of days, then really developed going forward, trying to nurture relationships through employer branding initiatives, so that you can really campaign people and build that relationship beyond the recruitment process. And then now moving into this whole spectrum of internal mobility and become a more holistic talent tool. You can see this now with a new announcement that we made that we acquired a company called Flux, which is all about internal mobility. So we're really thinking about how can we manage to actually rearrange your data with the ATS and the HRIS, and then really look at skills like, what do you need to upskill, what do you need to close skill gaps to, and really become a very sophisticated talent solution for your challenges on a daily basis.
And Matthias, what is your role? What is your role at Beamery, Matthias?
My role is I'm a talent director at Beamery, so I'm literally not a salesperson, but helping the organization to double in headcount every year and also mature our practices internally. So I have more of an internal view, but also an external perspective, because a talent professional in a talent technology company, you probably get it. There is a lot of room for feedback and involvement.
Maria?
Yeah, so I work with Matthias directly at Beamery. My role is a talent operations manager. So I basically take care of everything when it comes to building processes, trying to optimize the process that we have with the talent team. And the reason my role exists is because my goal is to empower and enable recruiters to make them more productive through tooling and, again, process building and stuff like that. So yeah, and things like implementing GoodTime is a great example. So yeah, we're a proud client.
Well, and this is why it's so great to have you both on here. I mean, not only is Beamery, a client of GoodTime and Greenhouse, but they are also, a partner of ours. We do a lot of, strategic, work with a lot of their reps and things of that nature. There are two solutions that I think really address the issues that Siegfried and I walked through, and kind of the environment that we're in right now. So it's awesome to be able to bring them in and have them speak to the power of GoodTime and what their experience has been. So if it's all right with you both, I think what I'd like to do is I will throw a couple questions out there. I feel free for both of you. I'd love to hear input from both. I'll kind of let you decide maybe who takes the initial lead on it. But if you're okay, let's start off with, what challenges were you really experiencing before you brought in GoodTime? What made you think like, hey, we need a solution, we need to solve this type of issue that we've got going on right now?
Yeah, I can take that. When I joined Beamery, so my background is also recruiting. So I was a recruiter mostly on the tech side as well. And when I joined, I spent a lot of time with the team to understand what was the workflow, what were the processes and stuff like that. And kind of discovered that we were spending something like 9 to 10 hours on scheduling per week. And that was kind of an enormous time that can be put somewhere else in more meaningful work, let's say, connecting with candidates and, or building pipelines, nurturing talent and stuff like that. But another major obstacle was that we couldn't really, because of the inconsistency, we couldn't really report on the amount of interviews that we did. And because of that, we weren't able to plan, do the reverse engineering. If we want to hire someone for this particular role, how many candidates do we need to interview? So there was kind of a lack of data as well. And we considered multiple solutions and kind of decided to go with GoodTime in the end of the day to improve the also candidate experience, because of the kind of getting rid of the back and forth conversations about when the candidate is available, what is the best time for the interview, and making sure that we have a faster turnaround time as well to from the moment the person kind of enters the process to the moment they have their interviews. So yeah, it was a lot of the different pieces, but that was kind of the main reason we were looking for a tool like GoodTime to make sure that we become more efficient and we spend our time on more meaningful topics rather than, just manual scheduling.
Absolutely love it. Okay, let's bring one in. Let's say, how has Greenhouse and GoodTime together improved your hiring process and candidate experience? So how is the combination of both what you were using with Greenhouse plus the addition of GoodTime, how has that helped with your candidate experience to this so far?
Should I take it?
Yeah, I think, Matthias, if you kind of talk about maybe the benefits of using greenhouse. I can talk about the integration a little bit and how the combination helps our life easier. But yeah, you start.
Yeah, I think also to add on the answer that Maria just gave as well is like consistency is key, right? In order to get your accurate data out of any system, you need to have people and workflows where people just follow this through, and not just what we experienced when we didn't get a lot of data correct was everybody did scheduling differently, right? And that's the worst case scenario. So what you know, when you use greenhouse, you probably know I'm now a 4th time greenhouse user in company, so I've seen different setups and different possibilities of the tool. But what is really, really important when you build your data strategy and you really try to understand where are the data points and how do you figure out what is broken, what not, I think one of the first things that, you know, greenhouse is great and it's hugely customizable, and you have multiple different add-ons like GoodTime or other tooling that you can plug and play, right? So it gives you a lot of flexibility in order on how to build your consistent talent, technology, tech stack over the course of time. And I think this was really, really easy for us. So when we looked at other vendors, it's always the possibility of how easy is it to plug and play, to set up the implementation and everything like that. And then that was something that was very convenient, because if you're a user in GoodTime or a GoodTime user in Greenhouse, you will see that button that is when you schedule something, and it's very, you know, from a user experience, very seamless. And this is something where we were very excited with a greenhouse, as a greenhouse customer, to have the opportunity to choose tooling that actually fits very well within our current existing tech stack.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think ATS, any ATS that you use, but we use greenhouse, it's the kind of core that you need to then build on and customize for your needs, for your workflows. So yeah, it was definitely the integration is a must for us with any tool that we consider, really. So yeah, it creates that seamless workflow for the user, in our case, recruiters, with GoodTime.
Great insight. Love it when we can see technology play together so nicely and build a powerful solution. What progress / results / improvements have you made since implementing GoodTime?
I think we're saving enormous amount of time on scheduling, which was initially the goal, but also there is, because you're able to build templates in GoodTime and customize a lot of the stuff that you're sending out to candidates, and also automate on a lot of it. I think it definitely affects our candidate experience positively as well. So to give an example, it's kind of a time saver, but also kind of creates an easier and more seamless process for candidates. You don't need to, as a recruiter or as a talent coordinator, recruiting coordinator, you don't need to specify every time the title and give a link to the LinkedIn profile of the interviewer, because if you've done that once in GoodTime, it will automatically kind of show to your candidates who they're speaking to, what is their title in your company, and it will give a link to the LinkedIn profile, which kind of gives an insight. Of course, a lot of candidates do their own research, but that kind of makes their research a lot easier and saves recruiters time. They don't need to input that manually. So yeah, things like that. There's a lot of other functionality that we are really excited about. And one of the topics that is important for us is interview training, but we'll get to that later, I think, as well. We'll explore that. So yeah, it's a great tool. Really love it.
Thank you. So Matthias, was there anything you wanted to add on that front?
Yeah, I think it's not just the LinkedIn profiles. I mean, if you really take this opportunity to also look at your employer branding material that you have, right? How many times is it for candidates that they understand and say, oh, apply to so many, as you showed in your data, I applied to so many companies, and now I have an interview. And oh, by the way, they have sent a video, they have sent a career blog, they have sent some information on what they do. So you get additional content that you can play and leverage this emotional experience already by making it easier to access certain data points or like, you know, kind of links to candidates, which makes this a nice experience. And I think also what we are doing, and I probably cannot speak for every client, right? But what we are doing as well is, you know, it's always very important to prep candidates. You know, what is the purpose of this call? What is the agenda? What can you expect, you know, and then also feedback that back to the hiring managers to understand what has been communicated to the candidate. They have them access as well, they have some structure there. I think these are momentums of a candidate experience that we sometimes don't think about, but the more structure you put in place and the more you have like a kind of a workflow system. I think also GoodTime did this very nicely in their introduction. I still remember when we did the implementation, we had a very good structure on what needs to happen next, and people guide us through that experience, which is something that you can also find is very unique, because you will be asked certain scenarios where you then say, oh, I have not thought about it, or actually, yeah, we need to actually iterate this as well, or maybe work on this going further, because so and so many times you just don't have this on your radar. When you actually buy the tool and then implement it, then a completely different story, but it opens up completely different different ways of perspectives. Yeah.
And I mean, definitely speaking from a candidate experience, which I know we've all been at some point, interviewing's stressful enough. So anytime you can, make that nice and easy and not have to put too much guesswork into it, it's always appreciative. So
but also maybe one last comment is also leveling the playing field, right? You were talking about diversity, and if there is always in interviewing a power play that you have because the organization already knows the process and everything else, but it's not transparent to candidates, you're not creating this eye level, side for people. And I think this is also, especially for diverse candidates, a lot of opportunity to just understand what is expected of them and how they can prepare.
Yeah, love that. So let me ask you, in the world of bringing on new tech, change management from, an employee perspective and management perspective, always a fun one to address. How did you manage the change management that would come along with implementing GoodTime? How was it received by your recruiting staff, your coordinators, the TA leaders and so forth, about getting everybody to make that transition?
Yeah, I think for me, it was important to get the buy-in from the team early on. So they were involved in the decision-making process to an extent. They saw the demos of the tools before we actually chose one. I wanted to make sure that they're happy, because they will be the end users, and they will be spending every day using the tool. So it's really important. But then with change management and you need to have a clear project plan, and I think the GoodTime team actually helped with that a lot, because that was done on GoodTime side. So what the challenges that we had was probably getting with early adoption, I would say, when you're training people, and also because at Beamery we've been implementing multiple tools at the same time as well, so it can become quite hard for the team as well to keep track of everything. But I was just trying to spend as much time as I could with our recruiters to make sure that I help them build templates. There are some people are it's easier for them to get used to new technology, and for some people it's a bit harder. So it was important for me to actually give them the time and space to get used to the tool and support them as much as I could. But yeah, I think we're using the tool, and the talent team are advocates for the tool. But with change management, there is also, when you're implementing an interview scheduling software, there is a bigger topic of calendar management and diary management across the company. And I think we are okay there, but there is still some improvements to be made. So we're still, I wouldn't say that we've gone through full change management, and that's it. We're always looking for ways to improve and make sure that we're providing the best, again, candidate experience possible, especially being in HR tech. So it's still an open conversation on different levels.
That's a good point. I think that resonates, quite a bit, that sometimes bringing in something new isn't just as simple as training up on something new, that it also maybe affects a few other pieces of the puzzle that you may have been used to, and potentially have to make some adjustments even further down the line as well, to continually to make it all seamless and working the way you want it to. So Matthias, was there anything that you would like to add to that part?
Yeah, maybe for people who make that decision, I think we did also a very radical approach in order to say, are we actually having recruiting coordinators in our team or not? And we decided not to, and then, spend that money, that budget we have additional that we didn't spend on headcount, into tooling. So that seems to be a really radical decision, because a lot of people are like, no, we always have recruiting coordinators. They are the best. And I have, to be honest, that has nothing to do with recruiting coordinators or the role. I have worked with so many brilliant people in that role, so they are fantastic, right? But in our organization at that time, we were actually looking at how can we create lean processes and not so people-heavy processes. And for us, the decision was going for GoodTime or hiring 2 to 3 recruiting coordinators. A lot of people from a budget perspective would say, yeah, but one recruiting coordinator is not as expensive as maybe that tool. But then you say, well, but not one recruiting coordinator will cut it for the whole team and for the amount of interviews that we do. So you actually need to look at multiple headcounts. So from a decision point of view, like with business, with finance, with other people, really having this, and the opportunity for us is recruiters own their own stuff, their own interviews, right? It's seamless for them. It goes fast, but at the same time, they have the ownership. And there is no excuse of like, why are you not scheduling this interview? Oh, the recruiting coordinator didn't do this, right? So it's similar of a kind of, putting a little bit more pressure on the recruiter, but also growing up the space of, hey, you own this, you have that, you have everything from our side to reduce the less amount of administrative work from your end. But we use technology and AI to actually make it as seamless as possible. And it's now up to you and your hiring teams to really nail this. You have everything from our side to be successful.
That's really great and really powerful insight. And that's a conversation that, I know we have over here quite a bit, in talking about that process and that thought, just that way of thinking about it when you look to these types of solutions. So that's really great to hear. 2 more questions for you. I promise I'll let you guys off the hook here. You guys have been amazing. What are your future plans for GoodTime and your overall kind of TA strategy and process?
Yeah, I can take it, but then I think Maria should also continue adding her thoughts. I think, we always look forward to grow with tools, new features that come up, opportunities for us to, when we were actually implementing a tool we haven't talked about, but now this comes up. So one case, and I will leave this to Maria, is interview training. But I think what you just showed also with your data is like, having the opportunity to have multiple people for one interview set up, so that the new feature, I think it just came out today for GoodTime, where you actually could see if an interviewer declines, then automatically GoodTime gets a new interviewer in and you don't have to do anything, right? So that is again on how do you set up your tooling? How do you set up your interviewers? How do you set up your structure? If you have the discipline of a team, you have a streamlined process, and you have multiple people as backup solutions, this is super, super nice and handy, right? Because you never end up, interview got canceled, but somebody prepared, and then you have like a really bad experience because that person took some time out of their busy calendar and schedule, and suddenly you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, we couldn't find anyone, right? That's poor practice. And so I think this is something where I can see with, this going further and further, that, we actually helping our organizations to mature more. And what we always say is like, as a hiring manager or as a hiring team, you need to have at least 20% of your time spent in hiring. And this starts with blocking out time for interviews, right? On constant basis. You need to have that. There should not be, oh, do you have time here? Do you have time there? This should be, prerequisition from the beginning to say, hey, this is my calendar. This is my time that I have for you to actually hire one of my new team members in my team, right? And I think this is something that we need to evangelize as well. Like, what do I need from you guys, from the business, and what you can expect from us. providing solutions that actually achieve our goals.
Yeah, 100%. It should always be a partnership between the talent team and the hiring managers, the business as well. But yeah, on the topic of interview training, it was actually one of the, I think when we got GoodTime, the feature was there, but it was very early stages. And we knew it was coming. It was part of the decision making as well, because as an org, one of our goals is to become more mature when it comes to hiring, and it consists of a lot of different things, but a part of it is we are kind of creating interview training and license to hire, almost like a certification program for our interviewers and hiring managers, and there's different levels to it, but it's again, managing something like that through spreadsheets or other tools is not really scalable. So a solution is really really great there. And yeah, we're currently working on using GoodTime for interview training, particularly to allow people to shadow interviews and then graduate from the program. So yeah, this is something that I'm super excited about.
I love to hear it. All right, last one. Promise you're off the hook here. So, how has GoodTime impacted your candidate experience, and what has their feedback been?
I think we kind of talked about it a little bit, but yeah, overall, I think GoodTime creates a positive experience for candidates. It's more. It's easier. Again, there is kind of less back and forth, and it allows you to build a relationship with them through preparing them better for the interviews and being a bit more transparent. So yeah, I think it definitely kind of influenced the candidate experience and also the interviewer experience, the recruiter experience in a positive way. Matthias, if you want to add to any.
Yeah, and I think, it's what we have identified, what drives good candidate experience is transparency, right? So this transparency that we talked about earlier is something that adds value, the seamlessness, right? And also with the less amount spent, let's say, the first 2 stages can really be done in a minute or 30 seconds because you have all those templates. It's very easy. You just go through this, and the way you structure your workload and your timing then helps you to make this a seamless experience for both sides. I really like features like, you could also say, you send the availabilities to candidates, and then you need to schedule it on your end because it might be that something has shifted until they booked some meetings in, right? So there are a lot of things that, is thought through in order to make this a seamless experience. And I think that really helped. But again, it's not the only impactful topic. I think, not mix this up by you say, oh, we just got GoodTime and now we have great candidate experience. People still need to be trained. People still need to understand how to behave. People still need to commit what we have communicated, right? If they come up with a completely different style of interview, no go, right? So there is a little bit more to this, but I think GoodTime gives us the foundation of actually delivering a great candidate experience by, getting one area out of the way, which is always like the scheduling piece, which is in the market we are living in and in the world that everybody is super busy and has a lot to do. Nobody has time, of course, a meaningful way of scaling that.
Yeah, and just to add one thing to that, I think when you're using, no matter what software you're using in any kind of talent area, it's finding the balance between automated experience and having that human touch as well. I think it can be quite a dangerous trap to fall into, to start kind of using GoodTime and having very generic kind of templates and stuff like that, not really customizing it enough. So you have to find a balance there, that a sweet spot that makes sense for both the candidates and recruiters.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Sometimes I think the goal is to potentially automate some of that stuff so that it frees you up to have that more genuine connection. You're not tied up in the manual, tedious part of it so much that you can automate that piece, and then it allows you to have that human connection, like you said, that makes it a really genuine experience. So, and actually, this is a great segue. We're gonna transition here into a candidate testimonial from a candidate that actually became a Beamery employee. But before we go, I wanted to thank Maria and Matthias sincerely. Your insight has been, very educational for me, and it's so great to be, partnering with you in so many different ways. For those that are on the call, if you get a chance, please go check out Beamery. Amazing company, amazing people, and thank you again for your time. Siegfried, I think I'm going to kick it back over to you, and maybe we can kick up the video from Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much. I love hearing from current customers, and also I'm always learning the industry myself, right? I haven't been in HR tech for my whole career, so it's really amazing to get these kind of insights. And also, I'm a salesperson, so I always have my own particular bias, and it's really helpful to hear, like, here's how to use automation, but here's how to use it thoughtfully. So we do have a great candidate video for all of our attendees here, and also some other great videos directly from candidates and other leaders like Maria and Matthias available on our site. We're going to actually send those out to you all. I think we spent the majority of our time in the right place with the right people. And since that video is on demand, we're going to go ahead and send it all out to you. Also, you'll notice that we didn't go through any kind of demo of GoodTime, so maybe you're familiar with it already and you understood a lot of what was said here, but maybe this technology sounds pretty compelling, but is a little bit difficult without some visuals. We didn't want to just dive into a product demo on this thought leadership webinar. We didn't want to go right into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up a quick poll here for you all. And what this poll is going to enable us to do is to understand how you would like us to most appropriately follow up with you. So we, directly reached out to you, most likely because you are a current greenhouse partner, and because we identified that there's probably a conversation worth having here, and you might find this information really compelling. So regardless of your interest level, if we could get 100% response here, you're going to be sure that John and I follow up with you in the way that's going to be most appropriate here. So I'm seeing a lot of responses come through. I'll give it just a couple more seconds here to make sure we get 100% response in, because again, just like we want to tailor things for candidates, we are going to tailor our communications with you all, and always treat you like a real individual here. So I'm still seeing a couple of responses trickle in, and then we're going to get right into the gift and kind of the opportunity that's available at the end here. And we got some really great responses. So we've got, wow, like 65% of y'all said heck yes. So that's amazing to hear. There's a couple of no's, and we'll see you later. And for the maybes, not right now, you'll receive a little bit of information on how you can connect with us later here. But thank you all so much. We're going to launch right into the gift that's available to everybody. If I could go ahead and get slides back up and pull up this slide here. Amazing. So here's how this works, folks. Regardless of what you just answered, we are going to take that answer and we're going to, of course, take note of it. But regardless of what you just answered, if you would like to receive a $50 Amazon gift card personally as a gift from GoodTime, and sign up with a demo with us, regardless of interest level for any kind of purchase, and regardless of next steps. This is honestly just to say thank you for engaging with us. And honestly, because we love this tool, folks at Beamery and a lot of other forward-leading organizations love this tool. And our philosophy is just to get it in front of the right people. And we know that the right time isn't always right now, but maybe someday it'll line up. So if you could take your phone, give this QR code a quick scan, and then the page that it's going to pull up, if you scroll just a little bit down, it's going to ask you for some information. If you use the same information you used to sign up with us today, that'd be great, and we can get everything all aligned. Be sure to use your employer email. Basically, if you got invited to this webinar, you're from a qualified organization. So just be sure to use your employee email so we know what organization you're connected with here. this QR code will take you right at the bottom of the page to a place where you can sign up. We'll go through a quick demo with you, show you exactly what this tool looks like. And regardless of the next steps, no questions asked, send you over a $50 Amazon gift card for your, I don't know, coffee addiction, for a nice, fresh new journal, for, I don't know, what amazing video games are out right now. There's a couple of good ones, maybe Elder Scrolls, fingers crossed. So whatever your personal Amazon addiction is here, we'd love to fund it for you in a little bit of shameless exchange for some more of your time and attention. But regardless, thank you all very much. We really appreciate you joining us today. I hope that some of this information was helpful, whether you interact with GoodTime again or not. For those that did book a demo and responded, heck yes, we will definitely look forward to speaking with you. And Maria and Matthias, thank you. Thank you again. We're so grateful for y'all joining us today, and so proud of showing off the success that you've had so far. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Hey, Siegfried, really quick before we finally wrap up, I saw there was one Q&A in there. Do we want to try to maybe address that really quick before?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry to miss that. Yeah, Tyler, I think if you've got those queued up if you've got access to it.
Sorry, what would you like me to do?
I think that we had a Q&A that I didn't see come through there.
It looks like it just said that, you know, if you've already previously demoed with GoodTime, would you need to demo again to receive the gift card? My thought would be, you know, if you can sign up for the demo, if nothing else, we'd just love to reconnect. If you don't necessarily want to sit through the whole demo again, we don't have to do that. We'll be happy to honor the gift card, but we just love the chance to say hi and thank you again.
Yep.
If you want to do that, then absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for catching that, John. All right. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.